Now, this video today is quite a different one. It's not going to be bonsai, but it's bonsai or related to the Oriental arts. Most people would never think of tea as an art form. I did not even know it. Having grown up in India, where tea is drunk, and being Chinese, where the Chinese probably invented tea, so we don't know much about tea, but I didn't know that tea, as I said, is supposed to be an art form. So, we all drink tea, especially the British. They have been drinking tea for centuries, ever since they conquered India or were, in charge of the British Empire. They also had a finger in the tea production in India. The Opium War made them introduce tea to India, and they had massive tea plantations. And the contemporary tea scene, most people, if you mention tea, they will talk about the tea that the English people drink, with milk, and the Americans drink tea with lemon. Some Japanese drink iced tea. But that is not the real tea that has its deep origins in the artistic form. So, in my humble house, where I don't pretend to know anything about tea, I just went through my cupboard, and lo and behold, I have come across so many different teas. So many different teas in this tea caddy. This is organic tea from Darjeeling, and this is the new tea sencha, Japanese green tea. Then there's a Chinese tea, scented Blau tea. So, just from my humble cupboard, Sikkim tea. I didn't know that there were so many different types of tea. This is a present that some tea friends gave us. And these little teapots, which I thought were just ornamental playthings, I didn't know that these are actually used for tea, actually savoring and appreciating tea. The 2 days that have gone by, I had the very pleasant experience of being introduced to the London Tea Group. They're a group of connoisseurs of tea that meet in London. And of course, I was introduced to them via this gentleman here. And if I can ask Martin to introduce himself, because we came together through his tea magazine. So if I can ask Martin to introduce himself, because Martin is the editor of a specialist tea magazine, editor and founder of this tea magazine. So I leave you to introduce yourself and talk about this.
Thank you, Peter. It's very kind. Yes, so my name is Martin Bohacik, and I'm the founder and publisher and editor of the tea magazine 80 Degrees. I had the pleasure to meet Peter some months ago, or online, where we did an interview about bonsai, which is featured in the latest issue, the 8th issue. And we've worked together, and now we're working on a new project. So that's why I'm here.
Tell us something about 80. What is the name 80 Degrees meant to imply?
So 80 Degrees, when people don't know much about tea and they see this magazine, the first question they have is that the right temperature to brew tea?
Oh.
Now, of course, there is no right or wrong temperature for brewing tea. It's all about preference, and it varies across the different teas and vessels and time employed in the brewing process. But the whole point of the title 80 Degrees is that people ask precisely this question, and they start wondering why it is called that and what's behind it. Because most people will just boil water to 100 degrees Celsius and hope for the best, but it's a little bit more nuanced.
So the tea cult or the tea culture is like a fine art. It's like people appreciating fine wines and fine paintings. So tea is not just one tea. There are thousands and thousands of types of tea, I suppose, isn't it? When I say I brought this just from one tiny cupboard of mine, I discovered so many teas, so many teapots. So the tea culture is a very sophisticated thing, I suppose. So until I came across these magazines, if you can just look at it, I've got almost all the issues, past issues of the 80 Degrees magazine. I was really surprised that tea has been grown not just in China, the home country, China, Japan and India, But places like Turkey, Portugal, they've all been growing teas. I really am surprised. Tell me something about that.
Yes, so again, most people think that most of the tea comes from India or China or Japan, but there are many different countries where they grow tea. In some, tea growing is very new, in others it's an ancient practice.
So did it come from China originally to those countries like Turkey and places like that, or
Yes,
they discovered it
so-
themselves?
No, it's said that tea was discovered in China.
Oh,
And along the border of neighboring countries, but the main producer and the culture was developed. Really
I suppose through the Silk Road it must have come through Europe and all
Exactly,
that.
the Tea Horse Road
Okay.
and the Silk Road. So these days you have many countries. You can, you know, even in around Europe, in America,
Yes.
you can grow tea.
They grow tea. Oh,
Yes, even in Portugal, where I'm based and the magazine is made, there are very good efforts of making tea now and historically over the past century.
I see. So when you approached me, Martin, about an interview, you wanted to interview me about bonsai. So obviously the oriental art of bonsai has some, not direct, but indirect link as an art form with tea, because it's also originally from the East, Far East. And your magazine, what does it set out to cover? It's not just about tea, although it's mainly about tea grown in different parts of the world, the different groups of tea people around the world. So you're hoping to expand into related fields of the art, which is related to tea, is that so?
Well, the funny thing is when people think of tea, or people who think they know about tea, they only think about the drink itself.
Oh,
But there is so much more to the culture and the history and the rituals of it. You know, you have ceramics, you have ways of brewing, ways of drinking, the whole rituals around it. So the magazine really covers the entire culture of tea, not just the drink itself.
yes.
And also it tells the stories of the people behind tea who make it and what their lives are like, how, you know, they're impacted socioeconomically and so on. So, and as you said, in the latest issue we talked about bonsai, which is not entirely related to tea, but there is a similarity in this life
Do
philosophy.
you get feedback on your articles? Do people communicate with you? Oh?
Well, interestingly, many people who like tea also like bonsai.
Oh,
Precisely
okay.
for this reason, because
Okay.
it's all related in similar philosophies and
Yeah,
ways
it's
of
like
life.
in bonsai, a lot of people are into Japanese culture because they think bonsai is just Japanese, which is not. So they are all very interested in the tea ceremony and all. Because most of the tea ceremonies people associate with Japan, they never associate it with Chinese making the tea ceremony in Chinese. It's less formal, but they still go through a ritual of washing the cups, heating the water and all that. So there's that, isn't it?
Many cultures have different ceremonies and ways of making tea, just because in Japan it's very very well known, very popular, and it takes a very long time with, you know, a lot of bells and whistles. So that's the most known one of every culture that drinks tea.
So we were talking about the association between bonsai and the Japanese tea ceremony, but not many people know about the Chinese rituals. They also have a little ritual, less formal than the Japanese, of brewing the water, washing the cups. But the Chinese, like most of the Chinese arts nowadays, is less ritualistic than the Japanese one. But it still goes into the history and the roots of it. So there is that. But in other parts of the world, they do sit together, they savor the tea, admire the tea. Like 2 days ago, we should have done a video where some young people got together. I was really surprised. These London tea friends, I think they must have been in their late 20s, maybe early 30s, and they were so much into the culture of the tea. So I was really surprised that it's not just an art form or a cult which old people follow. Now, like in bonsai, the traditional countries, like in Japan especially, bonsai is mainly followed by older people. Even if you go to Japan, they laugh at you. They said, oh, it's not for the young people, it's only for the old people, over 50, 60, 70 years old. When you have time, you do it. But I was really surprised that in the tea culture, there's so many young people who do it. You know, is that a trend all over the world?
It is, and specifically in Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and America. Surprisingly, the tea community is very strong It may not be very large, but it's very strong. People are very interested in this art. And as you said, there are ceremonies. The most known ones are in Japan and China, probably. But any country that drinks tea has its own way of making it, and you can really consider it being a ritual.
So, from what I gather, a lot of these groups and clubs, they get together. It's a social thing, so you don't always just drink it on your own. I think these people, they meet like once a week or so. So there's lots of social activity. I know that in bonsai there are clubs as you get more into it. Some people do it on their own, some people do it in a group or clubs. So the tea is the same thing, is it? Some
very
people
much so.
meet.
Yes, very much so. I mean, if you're lucky and there is a tea shop in your city, that's a nice place to go. But many cities, you know, tea shops are not so widespread around the world still, outside of Asia, I suppose. So sometimes people have to resort to just getting together in parks and drink there.
Oh, nice. And of course, what surprised me that even little things, I thought these were just playthings or ornamental teapots, but no, they actually brew tea with it and drink small cups of it to savor the flavor. So when you see teapots like that, it's not just a fun thing, they're actually usable teapots. These are Yixing teapots. This is a British teapot. So I hope people who are viewing this YouTube video about this tea business will get enthused and discover more. And if you can, look up the internet and discover 80 Degrees as a tea magazine. Do join and subscribe to it. You will learn a lot. Now, the other thing I would like to mention in passing, many of my YouTube followers will know that I have written 9 bonsai books. And my second book, Bonsai Masterclass, is regarded by most people as my best book because it was written really with feeling and, as I say, from the heart. I don't like that expression, but it was written with great enthusiasm from the heart. And that, luckily enough, is the only book that I have the text copyright, so I can reproduce the text of that book. And I discovered that Martin, because he produced such a beautiful magazine, I've got him to produce Bonsai Masterclass, refurbished and reinvented Bonsai Masterclass, and he's producing the book. So I've mentioned on previous occasions, many occasions previously, because I know that people have been buying Bonsai Masterclass secondhand through eBay or Amazon, and secondhand copies have been selling for large sums of money. £200, £300 was not uncommon to buy a secondhand copy of Bonsai Masterclass. But I promise you, the reformatted and redesigned and rewritten Bonsai Masterclass, which Martin is doing for me because he's a publisher and editor of this beautiful magazine, you will really love. And you've got facilities for posting it worldwide. We are going to market it that way.
Yes.
So they can place the orders and we will send it to you direct in any country of the world, and you can buy it that way, isn't it?
Yes,
so
yes.
Tell us something about that.
So we're building the logistics so that it's easy for you to ship worldwide, so anyone around the world
can place the order and we can ship it all over the world. So I hope you will support this, because I think we're also going to do like a limited edition, isn't it? I will be selling direct from the nursery, maybe 1,000 copies, and you're going to be mailing 1,000 copies. Let's see.
Something like that.
Yeah, so it is limited edition of 1,000 copies.
Very exclusive.
This, which Martin produced, the interview he had with me in 80 Degrees magazine. You like it, so I urge you to subscribe to this magazine and get this article. This, although it's supposed to be a magazine, is literally a book. It's a high quality book, really high quality. You see the graphics and the design, you will really love it. It's such a high quality thing. So I hope you've enjoyed this little interview, because it wasn't about bonsai, it's bonsai related, and I hope this will introduce to another world which is a part of Oriental culture, and I'm sure you will be delighted and delightfully surprised that there is so much to tea that even I never dreamt of. I never imagined that it's such a wide subject, such a wide world, and it will open your mind to a new dimension of an Oriental art. So thank you very much, Martin, for doing this interview.